Never before in the history of human conflict has so much been owed by so many to so few. Who knows who said that? Back in the back, I heard it. That's right. Winston Churchill said that 72 years ago, and he was addressing the British people about the Royal Air Force as they were staving off Hitler's Blitzkrieg and the Luftwaffe and protecting the lives of the British citizens in London. But you know, today, those words apply even more so to those of you here in this room. Do you know that only 1/10 of the population of the United States of America is eligible for military service? Eligible by virtue of their intellectual demonstrated ability, by virtue of their physical ability, and by virtue of their moral character. 1 out of only 10. And of that portion, only 7 out of every 100 choose to volunteer. So those of you in this room, service and family members, represent 0.7% of this entire nation. Yet you shoulder the entire burden for the protection of our country. And for that, we are eternally grateful. And when you then bear that down to the Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Reserve, 8,000 members roughly in the Coast Guard Reserve, that number has so many zeros to the right of the decimal that it's very difficult to figure out. And this Coast Guard, and particularly PSU 305, has been and remains at the point of the spear, the very tip of the spear. The very day after 9/11, you were there, providing waterside security, escorts to the family members via that waterside route during those very, very difficult days after 9/11. And I know that many of you were there at that time. As Chief Meese, I understand you're a plank holder here in the unit, and I want to thank you for that. And then down to Camp X-Ray down at Guantanamo Bay as the first detainees began to arrive. And then in preparation for the invasion of Iraq, doing the Embark Security Team mission, which then back to Guantanamo Bay. And now, as you prepare to deploy right after the beginning of the year to Kuwait, you continue to be right at the tip of the spear. And when I say you, I'm not just talking about the service members. I'm talking about each and every one of the family members that are here, from husbands, wives, fathers, mothers, aunts, uncles, sisters, brothers, loved ones, girlfriends, boyfriends. You all provide and are part of such an important role that we could not do this mission without you. And we can never repay you for the sacrifices that you as family members make. As military members, we sign on the dotted line, and while we may have maybe not complete knowledge about what we're getting into, you know, we have a pretty good idea. And to that note, there's not a single serving member in this room today that hasn't either enlisted or re-enlisted since 9/11. And so each and every one of you, particularly as service members, knew that a deployment was not only likely, but frankly probable. But for you family members who are along for the ride, many of you were unaware of that. And I can tell you that when I deployed to Iraq in 2008, I'd been in the Navy, both active and reserve, for 29 years, and it was the first time that my family was, as they say, suddenly military. So again, we can never repay you adequately for the sacrifices that you're making for us and lending us your most priceless loved ones in the defense of our nation. But what I can promise you is our very best, that we will strive each and every day to provide you with the best equipment, the best training, the best leadership, which is clearly exhibited here today, and for you family members and service members, the best support. And that is exactly what Yellow Ribbon Reintegration Program is all about, to provide each and every one of you with that support at a very personal level. And we've heard Mr. McGinnis talk about it, and some of the other folks who have spoken today have alluded to it. But I guarantee you, and for those of you who are first-time deployers, when you talk to your shipmates and other families who've gone through this before, each of you will change. There's absolutely no doubt about the fact you can't go through an experience like this that is challenging, exhilarating, sometimes dangerous, and sometimes very trying. But you don't go through an experience like this either as a service member forward or as a family member back home without experiencing change. But here's what I want you to understand about that is, and exactly what Yellow Ribbon is all about, is preparing you for that change. Your reintegration at the end of your tour begins today. When you prepare for and manage that change appropriately, all of those aspects and all of those skills and all of those newfound experiences translate themselves into very, very positive and significant change for you and your family. And part of that is being resilient and having the ability to handle life's challenges. Inevitably, they will come down the road. You'll experience things that you didn't anticipate and may not have that person there to lean on. But that's when we want you to come back and rely on the resources and the experiences that you had here, and also the relationships that you develop. One of the big reasons why we ask you to come together and get to know one another, because so many reserve component members come from far reaches around the country. And so you may not have had the opportunity to meet one another's families. But this provides you with that opportunity, as will that upcoming experience where you'll have, as family members, have the opportunity to come together while your loved ones are deployed and reinforce each other, be there for one another. You heard Shelley from the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Nutrition. She talked about the importance of physical fitness. Here's what we know about resilience. There are two main components to that. If you are able to maintain physical fitness and emotional maturity, and on any given day I struggle with each and every one of those, but if those we know are the basis of a resilient person, by maintaining that physical fitness and setting goals for yourself, clearing your mind, those types of things, and then having that emotional maturity to be able to weather the storm, using those skills of communication and understanding, that will get you through, along with the ability to rely on one another. I can tell you, when I deployed to Iraq in 2008, the Yellow Ribbon program, at least the legislation for the Yellow Ribbon program, had just been passed, and so we didn't have that opportunity. And I'm sure there were folks here in the room that I know had that same experience in previous deployments. And just a couple of weeks before I deployed, my wife and I shared a walk-in closet in our home, and it was fairly cluttered. And so I thought that one of the nicest things I could do for my wife was go in and take all of my clothes, my suits, my shirts, pants, and everything, kind of package them up and take them downstairs. And from my perspective, I thought, well, what more pleasant thing could I do for my wife? Well, what do you think my wife interpreted as a result of that? I still hear about it. But the message wasn't, oh, thank you, honey, for giving me room to expand. It was, you're not coming back. And it was very heartfelt. Now, had I had the chance to perhaps be a little bit more insightful, here I thought, 25 years of marriage was inoculation against stupidity, but it clearly isn't. But, had I been a little bit more open and had the opportunity to understand a little bit more about interpersonal communication and how folks view things differently, I'd like to think that I would have not taken that same action, or at least maybe not couched it as a surprise. I can tell you, too, from my children's perspective, as a matter of fact, my son Glenn is here with me today. When I left for Iraq, he was 13, 14 years old. And he, really without me asking or encouraging him to do so, his two older brothers were already out of the home. He assumed the responsibilities of the man of the house in many ways. The good news now is I don't have to mow the grass anymore, and he's become a master on the grill. But those were two things that, frankly, I enjoyed doing. I would come home after a tough day of work and get on the lawnmower, and that couple bucks of gas in the tank of the lawnmower was a lot cheaper than the hourly rate for a psychologist. And like a lot of guys, I think I prided myself on my prowess on the Weber. But he assumed those responsibilities, and when I came back, while I still sometimes maybe enjoy doing that, the last thing I'm going to do is take that back. So that's just one example too. When you're dealing with your kids, they're going to fill in a lot of blanks, and so be cognizant of that. Be cognizant of the responsibility that they rise to, and how important it is to recognize that and to make sure that they understand how you appreciate what they've done in your absence. Our daughter was 7, and I would get cards and letters and so on. Of course, we made a lot of use of Skype and that sort of thing. But even in today's environment of ready electronic communication, I can tell you that getting that physical letter, or that little card or something, that there's something special about that. But there's one card that she didn't send me, and I didn't see until she got home. Until I got home, and she handed it to me some short period of time after I had returned, and I opened it up, and dear Dad, sometimes I get a sick feeling in my stomach when I think about you, thinking that you're going to get hurt and not come back. And this from a 7-year-old, and I didn't give her the credit that I needed to give her to understand what, in her mind, the things that she was processing. And she was listening to the news, and I think she was certainly engaged with the family and those types of things. So the other thing I would encourage you to do is, regardless of how young your children are, understand that they're going through this as well. And as a matter of fact, that's why we encourage your child's participation. Not only do we know it helps make it easier for you to be here when we can provide the ability for your children to be here and to be cared for, but what we want to make sure too is that they have a safe environment from which they can articulate some of their feelings and so on. And so you'll also have that opportunity both in the during and when you come back, and have the opportunity to participate in our reintegration events as well. You've heard a lot about some of the resources that are available. There's one in particular that I don't think got mentioned today, and it's a relatively new offering. And uniquely for the Coast Guard, one of the things we constantly strive for in the reserve component is to make sure that we have parity of access to resources, parity in pay, parity in benefits between the reserve component and the active component. Well, here's a little bit of a switch. There's an organization called Tutor.com, Tutor, Tutor.com, that until recently was available only to members on active duty or members of the reserve component when they were on active duty, but the Coast Guard was excluded because of your kind of unique position. Well, we saw that wasn't fair, that wasn't right. So we were able to work with the folks from Tutor.com and provide some additional funding there to open up Tutor.com to all reserve component members, regardless of their status. So for those of you who are either right now or obviously as you're getting ready to deploy, kids in school, grade school, high school, or even for family members back home who are pursuing their education, you're eligible for that. It's free service to you, and I encourage you to use that. It helps, around the kitchen table in the evening. It's a great service, so I would encourage you to take advantage of that. Yellow Ribbon is a very high-touch type of activity. We bring you here and we interact with you very much on a one-on-one basis. So I would encourage you again to take advantage of that, develop the relationships, and maintain those throughout. Develop, somebody that you can call, folks that you can talk to, so that when your loved ones do return, you're prepared for that reintegration. You're prepared to share all of the excitement about the challenges that each of you had faced and the advances that you made and the new positions that you're in, to be able to really benefit from what I hope and pray for each of you will be a wonderful experience. In the news a lot within the last month or so, there's been a lot of discussion about the 1%, the other 1%. But I'm here to tell you that you are the 1%. You're the 1%, frankly the less than 1%, that bears the burden of our country's security and our freedom. And my hat is off to each and every one of you. God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you when you return. Thank you.